Okay, folks, so on May the 26th, in about a week's time, we have the full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, the first of two eclipses coming up. The next one being on June the 11th, which is going to be a new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. So the full moon lunar eclipse, let me just make sure I'm slowing down and saying this accurately. On May the 26th, the full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, and on June the 11th, the new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. Okay. Before I get to that video, there are two other videos I want to do, but for all intents and purposes, for people who are keen or curious to know about what's going on with the eclipses and eclipse season, I've actually in a certain sense already started to do eclipse videos as of 2 videos ago. There's a video I did on Mercury's transit in Gemini, and then I did the new moon in Taurus video. I'll place links to those at the end of this one, so you can refer back to those as you need to. But with this particular video, Venus's transit in Gemini, we are really getting into the eclipses for all intents and purposes, because we can't talk about Venus's transit in Gemini without referring to the upcoming eclipses. It plays a really important role. It makes a really important transit at the time of the full moon lunar eclipse on the 26th of May. Before I get to the full moon video, though, there's one more video I want to do, which is the Jupiter in Pisces video, because the full moon lunar eclipse squares Jupiter, so I want to get that transit covered before. So basically, until I get to the eclipses, all the videos I'm doing now really are about the eclipses for all intents and purposes. So those of you who are interested in understanding the eclipses, start watching these and see what makes sense to you and start to piece together your narrative. Because I would not be surprised at all if you are not feeling the eclipses already. You should be feeling them. And not every eclipse hits us in an eclipsy way, where something is eclipsed in or out of our lives in a dramatic manner or fashion. But it's an intense, both these eclipses are intense. And as I've mentioned before, let me cover this right off the bat, eclipses can bring news or information about people's mortality. And certainly, in certain parts of the world, this is a massive issue. So I don't know how many of, I don't know if all my viewers of these videos are going to be in a place where they're really thinking about the personal as much, but that's what these videos are about. So let's go ahead and dive in and go through that analysis. Now, Venus entered Gemini on May the 9th, and it leaves Gemini on June the 2nd. I actually typically like to do these videos extemporaneously, but there was so much important information, so many dates I wanted to mention, that I actually had to write down the sequence of them. So Venus entered Gemini on May the 9th, leaves on June the 2nd. And for the first part of Venus's journey, Venus is a planet associated with things like the arts and luxuries and beauty and our own beautification, the beautification of our surroundings. But to me, it's really concerns our resources, our money, and our sense of self-worth, our sense of independent self-worth, and our relationships. So money and relationships, and the links between them. As I have said before, the quality of our abundance is often linked to or related to the quality of our relationships. You can have clients, you can have viewers, you can have spouses. Chances are you have one spouse, if you have a spouse. Partners, roommates, people who you share resources with, whoever it is that you are in relationship with. Venus rules two signs, Taurus and Libra. Taurus is about our resources and our independent sense of self-worth. And Libra is about harmony in relationships and healing in relationships and diplomacy and partnership and the handshake. And it would not surprise me at all if for the first leg of its journey, Venus has brought opportunities for greater conversation and socialization and even healing to some extent. Gemini is a talkative, communicative sign. whether it is conversations on social media, on email, on Messenger, on WhatsApp, on the phone, on cell phones, on through writing, however you've been communicating, the communications would be up. They would be about connection, they would be about the sharing of information, and there would be bridges being built left, right, and center for the first half of Venus's transit. Over the past few days, however, and ultimately, here's why the Venus transit is so important to this eclipse, okay? The eclipses in Gemini and Sagittarius square the planets in Pisces, particularly Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune in Pisces is a placement that is associated with giving up what is not yours, what is not meant to be yours. Loss. Often this loss comes through a kind of a smoke and mirrors, confusion, deceit, mental fog, gaslighting, all of that can be part of it. Neptune in Pisces can also be exalted artistic inspiration. Neptune in Pisces can also be exalted sensuality, and it can be exalted spirituality. And it is indeed through this lens of exalted spirituality. Neptune rules Pisces, it is exalted in Pisces. It is through this lens of exalted spirituality, nothing and nobody is yours, your connection with source and spirit, that you have to view the lens of whatever's going on with these eclipses. Pisces went through some dramatic occurrences in 2015 and 2016, particularly 2016. Particularly 2016. I'm just thinking about this to see if there's anything more I can add to that. Even going into 2017 to some extent, but 2015, 2016, particularly 2016. So the part of your chart where Pisces sits, or if you think back to crises that sort of center around 2016, give or take a year, again, the eclipses of release were happening in that part of the chart. Neptune was already in that part of the chart. There were a number of transits there. So those crises are up for a certain amount of healing. However, the healing does not come like healing from heaven. It has to be fought for. It has to be created. Now, when signs square each other, as I've mentioned to you before, it's a little bit like planets at a stop sign, and the faster moving planet has to cross the stop sign so that the slower moving planet can proceed. And there's a standoff, and they are dynamic. If you asked me to characterize the May 26th eclipse in a word, I would say the word would be deception. Either someone is deceiving you, or you are deceiving someone else, or you are deceiving yourself. And issues related to Neptune and Pisces, exalted sensuality, exalted spirituality, loss, especially loss through deceit. The only way Neptune sometimes can take away things is through thievery and deceit. Well, that was cheerful. The good news with the May 26th eclipse is that Mars trines Neptune. So you have the power, and this is the lens through which I want you to view Venus's transit in Neptune and the eclipse coming up. And indeed, both the eclipses coming up, but between now and the 26th, if you think there is shady business going on, whether romantically, sensually, I'm not going to use the sex word because I don't want YouTube to get ballistic on me, spiritually to some extent, so that would be deceiving gurus and, do not give your power away. That's it. The video should be over right now, right here, as far as the eclipses are concerned. That's it. That's the message of these eclipses. Do not give your power away. Let me explain. The eclipse itself squares Jupiter in Pisces on its way to becoming an eclipse. I'm going to cover that in a separate video. But at the time of the eclipse on the 26th, Venus squares Neptune. The planet of relationships and money squares Neptune, the exalted spiritual planet that asks us to give up our power, or that could stand to deceive, gaslight. Even when it comes to arts and creative stuff, there's something with Venus in Gemini. Even the healing that we have been doing since May the 9th may have come from a perspective of cleaning up cobwebs in relationships or in financial matters, is the best way I can describe it. I'm going to say one thing. If you are involved in anything that is deceptive under these eclipses, beware. Beware. If there's something that you're involved with that is underhanded, that is not entirely clean and clear, not entirely transparent, a little bit sleight of hand, beware. Be really clear, really clean. Do not try to get one up over somebody else with these eclipses, even if you feel like you're doing it in the act of defending yourself somehow. Let me continue to explain. Let me give you these dates. Mercury, the planet of communication, did a video on it 2 videos ago. We'll put a link to it. Planet rules Gemini, squares Neptune on May the 22nd, 2 days from now. The planet of communication squares Neptune in Pisces. So something is necessary with regard to communicating with others, neighbors, siblings, relatives. Where does Gemini sit in your chart? There's communication that is necessary in this part of the chart where Gemini sits in the chart, which house it occupies, what that house stands for, that can help dispel or deal with or solve or ultimately heal or confront whatever the source of loss could be, whatever the sleight of hand could be, okay? But Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th. So Mercury squares Neptune on the 22nd, goes retrograde on the 29th, squares Neptune again, retrograde on June the 5th, goes retrograde, goes direct in Gemini on June the 22nd, and on July the 6th, squares Neptune for the 3rd time. 3 squares from Mercury to Neptune between the planet of communication and Neptune and Pisces. 3 squares. Communication, going over communication, confusion in communication, details, what do we need to sort out, what the hell is going on here? That is Mercury in Gemini squaring Neptune. And the source of it, the source of the solution with Mercury is going to come through communication because it's in Gemini. Very much things like resumes and sales, interviews, clarifying communications, TED Talks. I've already talked about social media and all the different forms of communication. Where does Gemini sit? Who does it stand for? Where do you need to communicate to get clear on things? Venus has been in Gemini along with Mercury since May the 9th. So some of this communication and bridge building or asking questions, particularly with regard to relationships and money and dispelling of cobwebs, has already been taking place. Reaching out to people, building bridges with people. A lot depends on where Gemini sits in your chart. But the intent of this, even if it has led to healing and clarity and you're determining where's there fishy business going on and where's there not fishy business going on. And the fishy business could apply to direct fishy business and business dealings or property dealings or financial dealings or, you know, someone usurping or someone doing gaslighting or someone doing kind of Neptune deceitful things. It could also be romantically and sensually. It's like, I can't think what is going on with me. What is going on here? You know, who is this person? Well, how am I feeling? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this real? Shall I jump into this? Shall I not? And then there's the spiritual exile. You know, everyone talks about how this lockdown and this kind of pandemic environment has created mental fogginess. Well, let's just say that we're dealing with the mental fogginess. We're dealing with other people's mental fogginess. We're dealing with our own mental fogginess. We're dealing with the fact that for certain people, an idle mind can be a devil's workshop. We're dealing with confusion. We're dealing with confusion. What is the government telling us? What are people telling us? What the hell is going on here? Now, Mercury squares Neptune on May the 22nd. On May the 26th, we have the eclipse. The day after the eclipse, Venus, the planet of relationships and money, squares Neptune. This next week, my darlings. Now, at the time of the eclipse, as I've told you, Mars trines Neptune from Cancer. Okay? So, ask questions, examine, reach out to people, try to clear the cobwebs in relationships and related to relationship issues or financial matters. Take action to dispel anything that feels deceptive or problematic. And chances are you will uncover something or start the process of uncovering something that will take you till July to solve. Because Venus will square Neptune and move into Cancer on July the 2nd, on June the 2nd. And then we have the next eclipse on June the 11th. And this eclipse, my darlings, the Sun, Moon, Mercury retrograde already squared Neptune twice. Square Neptune directly. The May 26th eclipse squares Jupiter, while Venus in Gemini is squaring Neptune at the time. The new moon is at about 5 or 6 degrees of Gemini. Neptune is at about 21, 22 degrees of Gemini. That's why the full moon the full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius squares Jupiter on May the 26th, because it's early in Gemini, and Venus at the time of that eclipse, the day after that eclipse, squares Neptune, because they're sort of in the last third of Gemini and Pisces. Okay. But then by the time we get to the new moon solar eclipse in Gemini on June the 11th, Mercury is already retrograde. The Sun, the Moon, and Mercury retrograde square Neptune directly. Magnifying glass. What the hell is going on here? With Mercury retrograde, let's go over this one more time. Reverse. What did I just see? What's going on? So the Venus transit in Gemini, chatter, 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 chatter. Bridge build, bridge build, bridge build. Are you this person? Am I this person? Testing, testing, testing. Is this relationship strong? Is it firm? Are there any weak cracks? Is this person telling the truth? Is this truth, 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 truth? Such an important word with Neptune and Pisces. What is true? When you look at things from an exalted spiritual sense of nothing and nobody is yours, that may be the ultimate truth, because God knows when we transition and pass on from here, all our dramas just disappear. Just disappear. When I think about relatives recently who may have passed or whatever, I just think of all the angst that they either created or carried, and I'm just like, poof, it's gone. All that drama, all that intensity, all their challenges, all their illnesses, all their problems, gone. These big things that occupied so many people, like an Etch-a-Sketch, just gone. And that's great that it's an ultimate truth, but it's really not helpful for those of us who are living here and have to deal with our sense of self and time-space reality. And Saturn and Mercury make certain demands on us too. And Gemini is that's the other part of this, which is, Gemini is a very here and now and practical and real world sign, Taurus and Gemini. And Sagittarius, where this eclipse is occurring, is a little bit, in some ways the eclipse is not bad in Sagittarius, because it might allow us to zoom out of this kind of mercurial detail and attempt to get a bigger picture of what is going on and attempt to have some perspective on it. We may need to rely on our principles, and certainly our sense of values and what we value is going to be challenged. Venus square Neptune. Another word associated with Venus is value. The value of things, the value of our resources, what we value in relationships, our principles. And Sagittarius, is a sign associated with truth and integrity and morality and justice, and not legalities, but broader senses, a broader, more right sense of justice. Greater truthiness, greater truth, a greater ability to zoom out in a situation, get perspective on it. So in that regard, having the moon in Sagittarius may not be a bad thing at that time. But these eclipses are not easy. But at the same time, especially with the 26th over the next week, Mars is trining Neptune. So somewhere, if you take with the faster moving planets, Mercury squaring Neptune 3 times, but the first time in a couple of days, people. Venus squaring Neptune on the 27th. Mars trining Neptune. Each of these planets have a role to perform in getting us to a place where we either stand up to something or let it go. And the astrology certainly suggests that you will stand up to it, that you have to stand up to it, that you will need to stand up to it. You will certainly at least need to take certain steps that put a spoke in the wheel of deceit. The astrology certainly supports that. But it's not a comfortable process. Dealing with mental fogginess and deceit and Neptunian, and there are larger questions here, and I'll address this in the Jupiter and Pisces video, which is what has been going on in the sign of Pisces where it sits in your chart, and crises in 2016, etc., that required this kind of attention. But this attention is necessary because Jupiter's entry into Pisces is trying to create a new beginning and bring some healing and resolution and some proper forward movement. You don't want that energy to be challenged by this deceit. So by tackling issues related to deceit, are you deceiving others? Others deceiving you? Are you deceiving yourself? How are you acting? Where are your principles through this process? What do you need to stand up for? Especially in the next week, go for it. Become Sherlock Holmes, bring out the magnifying glass. Mercury, the planet of communications. Venus, the planet of relationships and money. Mars, the planet of action. All are aspecting Neptune, which is like and you know what? Ultimately sometimes when we're trying to hold on to something, or when we're trying, and if God or fate has a different plan, then those things that are meant for us will stay with us, and those things that are not meant for us will leave. There's nothing we can do about it, really. We know this, and it's eclipse time. The other thing that is so uncomfortable about right now are the changes that are happening that we have no control over. God has taken the wheel in preparation for these eclipses. Venus, the planet of relationships, money, in Gemini since May the 9th. I was going to say healing through conversation, relationships, financial opportunities, pursuing financial interests through communications, through Geminian means, neighbors, commuting, interviews, sales, job opportunities, siblings, relatives, commuting transactions. But with Venus here and Mercury here, and with these eclipses, all this activity has been through the lens of what the hell is going on here. And where Gemini sits in your chart, where Sagittarius sits in your chart, where Pisces sit in your chart, there's a conversation going on. There's a conversation going on. In the middle sit you going, what the hell is going on here? Remember that especially over the next week, you have the power. The energy is escalating towards the full moon. It's increasing. So it's not a time to be lazy. You have the power to take some sort of action to get clear on what's going on, particularly when it's through the lens of communication. Mercury squares Neptune 2 days' time. Venus right after the full moon lunar eclipse. Venus in Gemini. Typically, it's the day of the ceasefire as far as Israel and Palestine are concerned. And Venus in Gemini, I would say typically would indicate a ceasefire. And in some cases, guys, as you examine and as you investigate, the bridges are being built and there are ceasefires. And the question here really is, where in this murkiness, because Neptune can create fogs. Neptune's lessons are so wild, there may be nothing deceptive going on, but Neptune may be creating a kind of energy where you have to get clear on, here's meaty what I'm about to say. Neptune may be creating a certain energy that makes it clear, that clarifies for you what your values are and what is worth holding on to and what is not. What is important to you? What is really beneficial for you? What is your path? And what needs to be in the boat with you as you move forward. There could be deceit that affects that. There's some element of deceit. 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 Because with Jupiter's entry here, Jupiter is also trying to give you something where Pisces sits. It's trying to create something. And the problem is that something that is going on over the next couple of months, or even the next couple of weeks, or it's already on its way to happening, could steal a portion of that, or rob, or make a claim to a portion of it. Funky business. This Venus in Gemini transit has its ceasefires, has its bridge buildings, has its healing, but at the same time, there's a larger motive, and it is an examination of trust through the lens of what you value. And somewhere you've got to, through this process, take action. By the time you get to the new moon and the eclipse itself with Mercury retrograde squares Neptune, I mean, you're going to spend till August the 11th practically sorting this out, going through the lens of whatever the hell is going on. Now, there are other things that are acting too, but I'm going to leave it at here. Next video, I'm going to talk about Jupiter's transit in Pisces, and then after that, I'm going to do the actual full moon video, which some of it is going to sound a fair amount like this. But be in communication. Mercury is still in Gemini. Venus is still in Gemini. Mars in Cancer. Hard to take action perhaps right now, but defending your boundaries and the boundaries of those things that you hold dear and that you find nurture you, that are important to you, that mother you, it's the sign of Cancer, that provide you with a foundation. So if you have been traveling and you need to go, you need to do one of those double takes that you do in farces where someone walks and goes, whoa, what just happened? I need to reverse. I need to go back. Be sure that start to get your hand on that gear to go into reverse at the end of this month when Mercury goes retrograde. But until then, take action and inquire and investigate and communicate and be in touch in those areas where you feel like there might be some hanky-panky business going on. This hanky-panky business can be literally, as I said, in finances or relationships or murkiness or outright deceit. It can be in your romantic feelings. It can be spiritually, mental fog. Let's clear this mental fog. If you know where Gemini sits in your chart, those are the people that need to be contacted. That's where the investigation needs to occur. If you know where Sagittarius sits in your chart, there may be visibility as you head towards this eclipse around something related to that part of the chart that is impacted by this shady business going on. And if you know where Pisces sits in your chart, then you know exactly where. Gemini, who? Pisces, where the murky business is going on. Sagittarius, what it affects. Or what is at the heart of it, or what is at the center of it, or where is it there? Where's the visibility? Where is it that the full moon needs to occur to say, here, look here. But the real meat of it, the real meat of it is between Gemini and Pisces. Okay? I will leave it at this. If you found this video useful, share away, like, comment, that gives circulation on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified when I do new videos. And my contact information is in the description area. If you want to reach out to me to do a reading, especially through eclipse season, sorry to get salesy on you there, but hey, Mercury and Venus are in Gemini. So if you do want to reach out to me and inquire about rates for readings, you can do so there. If you want me to make an easy-to-read version of your chart that tells you which planets are in which houses and what those houses stand for and what signs are in which houses, inquire, and I'll give you the rate information. And clearly, once you get the rate information, you can decide whether you want to move forward or not. I'm going to leave it at this, and until the next video, bye.